Hello, AP Chemistry students, and welcome to your Unit 4, Lesson 3 summer homework, which is all about chemical bonds. Before we talk about the types of bonds there are, we need to review what the octet rule is. Remember, atoms bond with other atoms by either sharing or transferring their electrons in order to achieve what we call a stable octet. A stable octet contains 8 valence electrons, and these bonds are created so that the atom will gain its stability. So the first bond type that we're going to talk about is ionic bonds. This happens between a transfer of electrons from your cation to your anion, so your metal to your nonmetal, so an element from the left side of the periodic table with an element from the right side of the periodic table. Ionic bonds have specific properties that are just for ionic bonds. They have high melting and boiling points, they're mostly hard crystalline solids, and they conduct electricity as a liquid or when the ionic solid is dissolved in water and the ions that make up the ionic solid are mobile. An example of an ionic bond would be sodium chloride. You know sodium chloride, it's table salt, it's hard, it's solid, it has high melting and boiling points, and if you were to melt salt, you would be able to conduct electricity, and that's because salts are electrolytes. Electrolytes are substances that are able to conduct electricity. Metallic bonds are the second kind of bonds that we're going to talk about. They're made of metals only. So what happens in this kind of bond is all the metals lose their valence electrons, and those electrons form a sea of mobile electrons. So the bonds of metallic compounds are a little bit different, so their properties are going to be different. They're going to also have high melting and boiling points. They're insoluble in water, and they're always able to conduct heat and electricity due to the fact that the electrons are mobile. And they're also malleable and are ductile. Remember, malleable is being able to be bent into a shape, and ductile is being able to be drawn into a wire. So an example of metallic bond would be copper. Copper is a hard solid. It has a high melting, and you can't even try and boil it. It's malleable, it's ductile, and it's a conductor, and it's also insoluble. Covalent bonds are the last bond that we're going to talk about. They're made up of nonmetals only, so those are going to be the elements on the right side of the periodic table. Remember, nonmetals share the electrons between the atoms, so sharing is caring. C stands for covalent bonds. And these properties are going to be different than metallic and ionic. They have low melting and boiling points. They're soft solids or gases. They never conduct heat or electricity. And an example of this would be dextrose, C6H12O6, which is also known as sugar. It's soft, it melts easily in saucepans for making caramel, and it does not conduct electricity. So remember a couple of slides before, we said that ionic compounds are considered to be electrolytes because they're electrically conductive, they conduct electricity. So things that are not electrically conductive and do not conduct electricity are called non-electrolytes.